I know that when I go and do a strength training activity, that I'm going to raise my dopamine levels 2 times above baseline, similar to sex. So, we are going to talk today about the neuroscience of winning. And if you ain't first, you're last, right? This is a famous line from one of my favorite movies with Will Ferrell, Talladega Nights. Of course, if you've seen the movie, you know that it's hilarious. The line ends up being sort of dismantled in the end, but I won't spoil it for you. But there is something really sexy about winning. There's something really that we are drawn to about. It feels really good to win. So we are going to talk today around the neurophysiology of winning, what happens and how we can actually set ourselves up on a day-to-day basis to be winning more in all verticals of your life. Sound good? Yeah? Okay. All right. We're going to go on a geeky magic carpet ride together. All right. So just a little bit about me. These are some of the things that I've created I'm very proud of. 19 years in practice. Photo by Darius Bashar, if he's here. That's a photo that Darius took of me for my book cover. Best-selling author, podcast, mom of 3, Duolingo aficionado. Anyone in the house here do Duolingo? Find me, let's play. I'm just like a super nerd. And I'll also say that my chocolate short ribs have been known to make grown men weep tears of joy. And that's exactly why you should be listening to me today. All right, so let's dive in. Let's start with dopamine. So serotonin and dopamine, technically the only 2 things that we really enjoy, right? You think that you enjoy your coffee or your chocolate, but it's really because it's mediated by these 2 neurotransmitters. And dopamine, when we win, when we have a big win, our brain is going to reward us with dopamine, and it feels really good, right? It feels really good to win. And the really cool thing about dopamine, when we are bathed in its glory, is that we don't forget what it feels like. So we come back to those behaviors again and again so that we can continue to win. Okay, so let's, in our conversation, in our little geeky magic carpet right here, I want to frame up for you a little bit about how we perceive winning, and then we're going to get into some strategies in terms of how we can increase our baseline levels of dopamine on a daily basis. So, first of all, this is a photo from the Beijing Olympics. Michael Phelps is in the middle there with the gold, and you have his silver and bronze medalists on his left and right side. And this is really high level of sport, right? The difference between these medals is probably less than a second, right? Hundreds of a second, thousands of a second, something like that. But it still doesn't change the way that we feel about winning and losing. And there was a study that was done specifically with Olympians. What they did was they took photos, they looked at the photos of hundreds of medalists, podium medalists, so those who had taken their picture after they had won gold, silver, and bronze, and they had sent those pictures to unbiased individuals and asked them to categorize how those individuals were feeling. And the pattern that emerged after looking at hundreds and hundreds of photos is the one of them you see here. The gold medalist in the middle, happy camper, right? Fastest swimmer in whatever category this is in the world. The bronze medalist right beside him, also very happy. The silver medalist, staring off into space, kind of looks a little miserable, right? And so, silver's pretty good, right? Like second fastest swimmer in the world, not too shabby, except what he's probably thinking about is, God, I just missed out. I was so close. Duh, right there, right? And the gold medalist, of course, he's happy. The bronze medalist is thrilled because 1/100th of a second more, he wouldn't have even been there, right? And so Olympians are not the only ones with this particular affliction for coming up short. We all hate it, right? But I will argue with you today, and what I want to present with you today is that winning in your life, in all verticals, parenting, career, partnerships, friendships, is single-handedly changing every aspect of your life. And I would argue that the more that you win, this is going to impact your longevity, your health span, even your perception of time, which we're going to geek out a little bit on today as well. And you see this is not just Olympians. So if you look at the lifespan rather, of Nobel Prize winners versus Nobel Prize nominees, there's a mean difference of 2 years. So individuals who win the Nobel Prize live longer by 2 years. Baseball Hall of Fame, same deal. Baseball Hall of Famers live on average 2 years longer than their colleagues who are not in the Hall of Fame. And in Hollywood, of course, this is really where the winner takes all. Academy Award winners live on average 4 years longer than Academy Award nominees. And you can think about, if you think about the reason why that might be important or how you have this mean difference in lifespan, well, think about the Nobel Prize winner. He can teach at, or she can teach at any university in the world, command whatever salary. Same is true for, your Academy Award winners. They can choose the movies that they engage in. They can dictate the salary, the terms of the engagement, etc. And so I want you all to think about, as we go through this, how we can be setting ourselves up to be in the middle all the time. So next slide. Where do I point? Is it like this? Next slide for my favorite athlete. All right. So let's examine the relationship between dopamine, which is the neurotransmitter that's involved in reward and seeking out reward behaviors, and testosterone. Everyone's heard of testosterone, hands up. We've heard of testosterone, principal androgen hormone, right? Famous for libido, famous for muscle mass and strength, hair growth, confidence, taking risks. Well, there's a really important relationship between dopamine and testosterone. They have a directional, reciprocal relationship with each other. So as dopamine comes up, testosterone comes up. I got a handheld. I was practicing this without my hand, one of my hands being tied to the mic. But as dopamine comes up, testosterone comes up. And the same is true with testosterone. As testosterone comes up, we will also naturally raise our levels of dopamine. And the more that you win, coming back to this idea of winning again, the more you are going to increase your baseline levels of both dopamine and testosterone. And they've looked at this with elite athletes. I'm going to give you an example with tennis players, but this has been done with football players, or soccer players, I should say, and tennis players. So with the tennis example, they've looked at tennis players before a big tournament where there's multiple games. They took their mean serum testosterone levels. They were looking at a couple other things, cortisol and what have you. And there was no real significant difference between any of the tennis players before the first match happened. They play the game, and then there's a clear winner and a clear loser, right? So then they measure them again. The winners of the tennis match had higher mean testosterone levels, which were statistically significant, okay, versus those who did not win. And that difference was maintained until the second game, okay? So the individuals who had won their first game before the start of their second game still had higher levels of testosterone. And if they continued to win, what do you guys think happened? Keeps lifting, right? And conversely, unfortunately, for the individuals who were not winning, who were losing their matches, their testosterone kept dropping and dropping and dropping. Said another way, the more that you win, the higher likelihood is that you are going to continue to win. And of course, the opposite is also true. The more you lose, the more you can continue to lose. So you can either set yourself up for neurological momentum with your increasing levels of dopamine and testosterone, or you can set yourself into a neurological tailspin. Jordan Peterson also talked about this with lobsters. If you've ever read his book, The 12 Rules of Life, he talks about different hormones with lobsters, but we're humans, so we're going to talk about humans. And this has also been looked at, as I mentioned, with soccer teams as well. So they've looked at big tournaments like World Cup and Euro, and the teams that kept winning and winning and winning and eventually ended up winning the championship, or the Euro or World Cup or whatever it is, at the end of the match, higher levels of testosterone versus the teams that were losing. So the question then becomes, okay, got it. we, we know how we feel about coming up short. We know now the relationship a little bit between dopamine and testosterone. Dopamine also plays with a couple of other hormones that we don't have the time to get into today, epinephrine and oxytocin. We'll touch on oxytocin a little bit. But what I want to kind of move into is giving you some strategies and some actionable takeaways in terms of how you can all increase your levels of dopamine on a daily basis so you can set yourself up to be winning. And the first thing that you want to, that I want everybody to be aware of course, is that we all have different baseline levels of dopamine, part of which, I know we had Kashif on here before, surely some of it is going to be genetic, how quickly we clear the dopamine from the receptors, etc. So some of it is genetic, some of it is environmental. Y'all heard Sonia, and you've seen Sonia through the course of the day. She's my cousin. I haven't tested her, but I bet if we looked at her dopamine levels, they'd be on a different planet. All right? She's got all the energy, again, epinephrine and adrenaline, right? She's got the motive, she's got the drive, she's got the dopamine. So you can probably hear her from the back there. So I just want to let you guys, we all start off with different baseline levels of dopamine, okay? So the first thing that we can do is looking at our favorite, as my patient David Binns used to say, favorite warm brown water drink. So we have coffee. Now, coffee technically doesn't increase your dopamine. This is just a tickler of the dopamine receptor, okay? So this is just going to activate and wake up the dopamine so that when you chase it with some of the activities and some of the things that I'm going to present to you right now, you're going to have this beautiful synergistic effect. All right, so let's just talk about everyone's favorite, chocolat, okay? So let's just actually get the hedonic ones out of the way first. So we got chocolate, okay? Chocolate has been shown, and they looked at milk and dark. Now, being someone who likes to look at your blood sugar and your insulin levels, I'm gonna recommend the dark because of the glycemic index. However, this is also true for milk. Chocolate, milk, or dark has been shown to raise your dopamine levels 1.5 times above baseline. The catch is that it's really short-lived. So depending on your genetics, this can be you can have a transient rise, 1.5x times your baseline. That can be, minutes to seconds in some individuals, okay? So this is like a short-term play. Other transient increases of dopamine would be something like nicotine. You hear a lot of biohackers, Dave Asprey being one of the more famous ones, talking about how taking nicotine helps with transiently helps with focus and productivity. Again, has been shown to increase dopamine levels in the brain 2.5 times above baseline. Another hedonic one we'll go into is the initiation of and or pursuit of sex. Of course, right? 2 times above baseline. And there are other chemicals which will remain unnamed that we will not talk about because this is not that kind of talk, that will increase dopamine. But I wanted to go over, so I want you to think about chocolate 1.5 times, nicotine 2.5, sex 2 times above baseline. It's going to work this time, I promise. Maybe this time. There we go. All right, exercise. So this is a fun one. Exercise, depending on your subjective enjoyment of the activity, can raise your dopamine levels 2 times above baseline. So if you're someone like myself who loves to do push-ups, which we did in the back before we got up here, or strength train, I know that when I go and do a strength training activity, that I'm going to raise my dopamine levels 2 times above baseline, similar to sex. Interesting, right? Okay. And pro tip, if you want, so I was talking to you about, if you chase down, before you go and work out, you have some coffee and then go and work out, you're going to have this beautiful, as I mentioned, synergistic effect. Next one. The brain is involved in ascribing things that you find innately pleasurable. So there's a lot of bio-individuality between us. So when you are practicing gratitude, when you are thinking about something that's pleasurable or really meaningful to you, you will not only release dopamine in the moment of expression of that gratitude, but you're also going to be increasing the levels of dopamine the next time that you engage in that activity. Now, you can't lie to yourself. You can't be like, oh my God, I love these burpees. This is so great. I can't wait to do it again. Like, it has to be something authentically, something that you really love doing, okay? I would be remiss if I didn't mention the impact of community, right? This is something that you guys are all doing right now. Right? This is where we are in tight-knit communities where we feel loved and supported. We're able to fly our freak flag and be authentically who we are. This is going to drive dopamine pathways. And actually what we're doing is we're actually doing it through oxytocin, which some of you may have already heard before. This is our bonding hormone, the love hormone. We see this with parent-child relationships, partner bonding relationships, but we also see this very prominently in tight-knit communities. And actually, when you think about it, teleologically or from an evolutionary perspective, the reason why we are apex predators is because we've discovered that it's better to do things in groups than it is to do things alone. Your likelihood of raising your children or hunting down a caribou is going to be much higher, much more successful, we'll say, if you're doing it in a group versus if you're doing it alone. If you speak to any of Giovanni's Archangel Academy members, Archangel Synergy members, council members, obviously they're going to tell you they have world-class instruction and guidance and coaching to be able to move them towards their dreams. But part of the reason why those people stay in these memberships for the time that they do is because of the relationships, the social connection, and the support that has been forged over time in these memberships. Said another way, right? Being in a community is good for your brain. It's good for your longevity. And it's good for, in the case of memberships, it's good for your bottom line as well in your business. But we're gonna stick to the brain-derived benefits here as well. Okay, this is the stuff I get really excited about. Okay, so this is I want to introduce to you this concept that dopamine can control our perception of time. This is really interesting. So this is why giving a reward at the end of an activity is actually very counterproductive. You might think, oh, well, what is she, like she's been saying, like if I do something and then I get a reward after, I'm going to have the dopamine pathway and I want to do. No, when your brain is not stupid, right? So if you are only rewarding yourself at the end of an activity, your brain is going to stop, it's going to unhitch, disassociate the event or the activity and only release the dopamine at the end of the activity. So I'll give you a weight loss example because it's really easy for everyone to really understand. If you are, let's say, a woman and you want to lose 20 pounds or 10 pounds, whatever the number is, how long does it feel between today and when the 20 pounds is lost? Forever. It might as well be centuries, right? So over time, if you say, okay, I'm going to take myself to Paris, once I lose these 20 pounds or give myself a new wardrobe or whatever, it's going to take you twice as much caffeine and twice as much loud music the next time you go to the gym and twice as much pre-workout and all the things in order for you to continue pursuing that outcome. And how many of you have heard of Carol Dweck, the author of Mindset? Just a show of hands for me. Yeah. So she wrote this seminal book. It's called Mindset. And essentially what she's talking about here is the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. Okay, so a growth mindset is essentially having an attitude or cultivating an attitude of change, which is your neural circuitry, right? So what I want you to think about, especially I've just explained to you that giving a reward at the end is probably not the best thing. What we want to be focusing on actually is the effort that we're taking towards the outcome, right? It's the behaviors that we do every single day. And that's what you want to be focusing on. Now, I know that we've been talking about winning today, so some of you are like, well, why is she saying that if she's saying that we want to win? Well, paradoxically, when you start to forget about the outcome and you only worry about giving 100% every single time, you end up getting the results that you want, right? So when, if you have let's say you have a client, in my case, I have clients who, I'm working on, working on their body composition and weight loss. If someone were to come up to me and say, oh, guess what? I lost 5 pounds this week, I'm not going to reinforce the 5 pounds that they lost because that's the outcome. I'm going to reinforce the effort that it took them to lose the 5 pounds. So that might be, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. I'm so proud of you. I can really see that prioritizing your sleep and getting your 8,000 steps in a day and getting early morning sunshine is really working out for you. Just using a couple of examples, pulling off the top of my head. Do you see the difference between that and, oh my God, you lost 5 pounds, amazing, right? When you start focusing on your efforts, right? This is when we can start to see the results that we're looking for. So we want to focus on our efforts, and then your brain will start, you will find that when you give everything in the effort, this is when your brain will start releasing the dopamine in conjunction with the effort and not the outcome. So when your legs are sore and you say, man, I don't want to do another squat, right? Or in this entrepreneurial journey, when you say, man, like it really sucks right now. I don't want to take one more step further. You can say to yourself, yes, it's painful. And because it's painful, and because I'm not giving up, that is what makes me great. Yeah. Because this entrepreneurial journey is really painful and I don't know exactly what my next steps are, but because I'm going to join Archangel Academy, I'm going to get the support that I need. And I'm not giving up. That is what makes me great. That's the secret sauce. Everybody wants to win, right? If you hear someone on stage say, you have to have a winning, mentality, like I'm going to call BS because everybody wants to win. But putting in the effort is something that many are not willing to do, right? To put yourself in a position to win. Not everybody can say that they do. So you have some of the secrets now. I hope that this has been useful for you. If you want these slides, there's the QR code. Just take a picture of this, automatic download for you, my gift for you. I hope that you found this useful. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you. If you enjoyed that conversation and you want to learn more about hormones, check out this video right here.
Oxytocin is the opposite. It's the most alkalinizing hormone. So in fact, you can be have a night out eating pretty crappy, but you've been partying with your friends, laughing, had great sex, and you wake up and your urine pH is completely alkaline. That's the power of oxytocin.